session of Career Conversations today. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Mrs. Comparin, and I work in the College and Career Center at Briar High School, along with Ms. Barnes from Rockridge, Ms. Kaiser from Independence, Ms. Jones from Stonebridge. We'd like to welcome you to our Career Conversation event with Rosendin Electric. And students, we do invite you to type your questions in the chat so that we can answer them eventually. And we are honored to introduce to you Tiffany Abbott, the Regional Pursuits Manager for Rosendin in their Sterling, Virginia office. Tiffany leads pursuit efforts such as technical proposal development and marketing support throughout Virginia, Maryland, DC, North Carolina, Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. So Ms. Abbott, please share with our students your path to getting where you are today.
Sure, absolutely. So the encouraging part here is probably to understand that my path here was not conventional by any means. I did go to college and I majored in liberal studies because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I did have a concentration in graphic design, but by way of just kind of finding what really worked for me along the way has been probably my saving grace, honestly, in my career. I worked in, radio, I've worked in retail, I've worked in law, and ultimately the common denominator of all of that was I was able to use a skill set that I learned in college. I was a graphic designer by trade. And that's kind of been the bottom line of what I've used to build on my career. And I was prior to Rosendin, I was at a civil engineering firm for 7 years, and I decided to make the leap and come here to further grow my career and concentrate more on pursuits management and working with our marketing department here, who is out of California. So it's just been a little all over the place, but it has grown to be some of the best decisions I've ever made, and it's been a great home here at Rosendin so far, coming up on 2 years.
Wonderful. Would you mind introducing your colleagues that are here with us today?
Absolutely. Happy to. So staring right at me in front of me is Ian Foster. He's a division manager here at Rosendin here in our Sterling office with me. And below him is Tony Esteve. He is also a project executive / moving into a BD role here at Rosendin. So if you want to talk a little about yourself first, and then we'll move to Tony.
Yeah, sure. So no, thanks for having us. So I'm a division manager. So kind of to follow the outline that Tiffany put together, I probably had a more conventional route here, although sometimes undecided along the way. But I did go to college, 5-year program in engineering. Sort of my path in my I guess interests were science and construction, physics and math, and that was sort of all that kind of blended together. So I was debating at the time between architecture and engineering. So I ended up in architectural engineering, which was, is really the engineering of buildings. With that, I chose or had decisions if I could, if I wanted to go in the design route, which would have been structural engineering or lighting design or some of the HVAC and even acoustics. I ended up down the path of the actual construction management side of it, which is not necessarily professional engineering, but sort of encompasses all of the above. My interest there was, design would be a little more with the computer, maybe not as interactive, not as much into the management side, whereas construction management, being out on construction projects, large projects, and being part of those pursuits. So that was sort of my role. I came in into the electrical contracting side of it, which was a little more focused as a assistant project manager, and kind of worked my way up through that. And now I oversee one of our operating divisions here at Rosendin. So. Yeah, so that's sort of it in a nutshell. So I don't know. And then Tony, I don't know if you want to kind of segue into that.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm on the phone, not through the computer. For whatever reason, it wasn't coming through.
Hear you good.
Great. Fine. So my name is Tony Esteve. I'm a project executive. Really in my role, I kind of work with the individual projects. If we're building a data center or a school or a hospital, putting the team together from the electricians in the field and the general foreman, and then the management staff, the project manager, the assistant managers, getting the job up and running kind of through the contract phase, and then really into the field team so they can build the building. And then kind of, so to speak, feeding the funnel for our teams with new jobs as they're out there building them to make sure we've got things for them to move on to once they complete their projects. As far as my time here at Rosendin, similar to Ian and Tiffany, I went the college route. I was originally kind of on track to go into the U.S. Army, but that fell through, and I kind of was a junior in college and had to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life, and ended up in the construction world. My degree is in mechanical engineering. I worked for a mechanical contractor for a while, so think ducts and air conditioning, and then transitioned over to the electrical side pretty early on, and I've been doing that for 20 years now.
Fantastic. I love it. I know there's a lot of kids that are very interested in engineering, so that there's two people that are, that majored in engineering. I'm very grateful for that. So could you please tell us about Rosendin Electric? What all do you do? I know, Tony, you touched on that, but, for me personally, I didn't really know what Rosendin was. I had to go to your website to figure that out. So if you could tell the students, that'd be great.
Happy to. So I'll give you the marketing spiel side of it. So, so Rosendin was founded in 1919. So we just celebrated 101 years. And we are roughly about 6,500 employees and $2 billion a year revenue, and doing very well. We're very fortunate in this market that we have been able to excel given everything that's going on. So we're doing well. By general standards, we're an electrical contractor, and if you get down into the seeds of that, some of the things that we offer as a company, electrical engineering, obviously, but we also do BIM, which is building information modeling, prefabrication, which Ian and or Tony can touch on a little bit later on, which is one of our huge cost-saving measures here at Rosendin. It's really cool to see how our whole warehouse functions. Helps also with safety as well. So we do a lot of things, the prefabrication here in-house to keep our our union workers and our staff safe out on the job. We also offer things, such as design build and design assist. Those are two programs that we do that we take a lot of pride in. And then what else do we do? That's a great question. And then I just drew a huge blank. That's really unfortunate.
Well, I mean, I can jump in. No, I mean, just even outside of the actual construction side of things too. I mean, we build, in essence, your typical commercial buildings, data centers. I mean, that's the heart and soul of the work that we do, the construction piece. So some of the things that Tiffany mentioned are big support pieces to that. So we do have designers, that actually do electrical engineering, but then we also will estimate or propose on projects that are already designed, and we'll just build the electrical portion of that. In other facets, we do renewable energy. So in that regard, we would be doing the electric portion of wind turbines. Oftentimes that equipment is provided by a customer, but in some cases we may provide solar panels, or we may provide. So we're not necessarily a general contractor, but we do general contracting at times. We'll get involved in excavation and those sort of things, providing different value-added services for our customers. So sort of did I kind of hit it there, Tiffany? I mean, it's sort of a broad view, but at the end of the day, I mean, as we kind of joke, we're the largest. I mean, I think overall we are solely electrical contracting, we're the largest in the country. And we're like the biggest company that no one's ever heard of. It's really, I mean, we do $2 billion worth of work a year. Part of that's probably because, I mean, especially Loudoun County, for most of everybody here, all these big gray boxes around here, a lot of times are very secretive, right? Or secretive, as far as they don't publish, or they don't want to see the contractors involved. So if that's a big portion of our portfolio, it's not like we have a big banner at a football stadium or a baseball, those kind of high profile things. So,
yeah,
but
also,
we like it.
It's like you're the successful company behind all the, you're the behind the scenes kind of guys. Yeah.
That's where I think we like that too. There's nothing wrong with that. We don't have to be on the billboard all the time. But
right. Yeah.
We're also employee owned, completely employee owned. So every person here at Rosendin is an owner of this company, which I think a lot of people here will tell you attributes to the success of who we are. Also ingrained within our culture, it's everyone has a piece of the pie, which ultimately at the end of the day, if you can make projects great, if you can make them successful, you will as well be successful as an individual here.
Wow, that's awesome. We haven't really heard that, so that's interesting to learn that. So what types of roles are needed to run your business all the way? I know you talked about the engineering and electro, but I mean, it takes someone from every career cluster, correct?
Yes. It takes a lot of people to run this ship. It's, people will think of it's an electrical contractor, that it doesn't go much further than that, but that's so far beyond, because we're a business at the end of the day. And to run that business, you need people in HR, you need people in accounting and estimating and safety and project management and marketing, engineering, and the list goes on and on and on. And it's without each of those people, we would not be a successful company.
Awesome. Students, feel free to type your questions in the chat, because I know they would be happy to answer them, and you probably have different questions than me. Oh, first question. Have you guys been building nuclear power plants? And if not, why not?
I can probably take that.
I'd love to take that one,
Tony?
Yeah.
I can pass it off.
No, we are not building nuclear because nobody is really the political will in the country right now is not supporting nuclear power. And if nobody's going to pay us, we're not going to build it for them. No, there's been discussions in all seriousness about Lake Anna down the road about adding capacity there. That is potentially something that could be added in the future. Right now, presently, we don't have any nuclear projects.
And question for you, Ms. Abbott, has your background in liberal studies helped? How has your background in liberal studies helped in your role in Rosendin?
I'll try to make this short and sweet. So when I went to college, I was in an art program, and I'll be very, very frank. The program I was in, at the end of your senior year, it was an evaluation of your portfolio, and it was a pass or a fail. I failed twice. So it was at that point where I came to a juncture, and I had to decide what I wanted to do. And I decided to take the skill set that I had, graduate with a degree in liberal studies, and go try find my niche. My first job out of college was as a graphic designer, and I absolutely hated it. And at that point, I knew that I needed to find something that combined my passion of art and graphic design, but also helped me kind of figure out and work my way through of what really was I good at. And it took me a while. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's some people find it right out of school or right out of a trade, and more power to them. It took me a while. And like I said, I went through radio. Radio was my first job. So we were all from this area. So Hot 995, DC 101. So I worked for them for a while. And I did sales and all that. But part of that, I was able to use my graphic design skills to build these proposals, which kind of started my whole transition into the proposal world and going into and working for internet marketing companies. And it kind of just snowballed from there. But like I had mentioned, at the core of it was still this skill set I was able to use to build on my career. So it's been an interesting road, and it's definitely, again, not conventional, but I think finding that core interest and that core skill you have to build on that is probably why I've been able to be as successful as I have been.
So for most of your positions at Rosendin, do they require a bachelor's degree?
No, they do not. It depends, obviously, on the role, but we have many positions here that do not require a bachelor's degree. I'll let Tony and Ian elaborate on that a little bit more, because on the operations side, they might know more about those individuals who are within those groups.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not uncommon for us to, in the management side, project management focus, usually there is a bachelor degree, but it's not required. One, we have personnel that actually come up as electricians too, which is something that, growing up, I worked in construction in the summers. I would work for a contracting company. So it was a, summer job. You can also, through the apprenticeship, we have an apprenticeship program with the electricians. So there are some electricians that, men and women that came up through the field and then eventually had an interest in the management side of things, or an interest in the safety, part of our business, and so on and so forth. So that's one. Associate's degrees too are pretty common, a 2-year degree, even, on the accounting side or some of the finance side. And even, but yeah, I wouldn't say there's probably a common path, but it's not, we're pretty open to it, and experience is a part of that too. So
I guess that was my point, is just letting kids know that there is another way, there's always a path that works for you.
Absolutely. And it's what's interesting about, it's tough. So construction, I'll kind of go on my soapbox. Construction's interesting because it's from backgrounds, of whether, I just interact all day long. I work with folks that have been in construction in the field for 30 years. I work with others that have only been in a, schooling type environment, that have a master's degree and they came right into work. And you know what I mean? So you have a different, totally different backgrounds and different paths, and they may be in the same role, or they may be peers. So it is pretty interesting. Or they went a different career path and then, came into construction as well.
So
I would
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say as well. So just for clarification, the majority of our employees are union electricians, and many of them did not go the college route for a bachelor's degree, but be clear that they go through a tremendous education program, because you can't just show up with no qualifications and start running electrical circuits. You have to have an understanding of basic electrical theory and Ohm's law, and they spend a tremendous amount in a 5-year apprenticeship going through and learning those things. So while they don't have a bachelor's degree, there is a tremendous education process there, and I think that's what you're getting at, Ray. There's a tremendous pipeline there of opportunities for folks that kind of want to do something outside of the traditional 4-year college route.
So it's hard to get internships in high school. Are there other types of experience that students can get at this time that would relate, that would help them? Does that make sense? That, instead of an internship, what could they do to look good on a resume, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. I can say, going through this in college, prior to college, I started with working in construction myself. So that was something, that may not be for everybody. I also had worked in a business office for a little while too. So it was sort of just summer help, to be candid. And even just the traditional high school jobs, those are all good. It's work experience. At the end of the day, we come to work every day and we interact with other people. So I don't think it's that important to be hyper focused. I think doing something just gets you out there. And then in time, you get into college and you'll slowly narrow the focus, or you get into, an apprenticeship, or, get into some other things afterwards. So I think just getting out there and being interested in the workforce, and I think is what you can do right now.
Thank you for saying that, because we do try to tell the students that, but I think they always are so set on it has to be an internship that we're trying to tell them, no, work experience is good. It's really good.
Work experience is good. It's responsibility, right? It's sort of it's a parallel to responsibilities of school and having assignments, and you have a responsibility to show up to work and to interact with people, even if you're doing something at the mall or a grocery store, or working for a lawn service. Those are all, you have to be there on time, and you have to be able to communicate with with your coworkers, and those are all life skills. I mean, that's probably my biggest advice. Just work on your life skills, and you can't go wrong with that.
And that was one of the questions: is what soft skills would what are you looking for in new employees?
Yeah, I'll piggyback. I'll answer that for you, Ray, and also piggyback off of Ian's comments. I can say that, through college and summer jobs when I was growing up, I can tell you exactly what I found out what I didn't want to do with my career when I got older. But the one thing I found for myself was, even in some of the crummiest jobs I had, the core of it for me was people. Like I loved being around people. I loved talking to people. And like Ian said, you build those life skills. I've done accounting. I did retail. I worked in a kiln for 2 summers. And it was miserable, but it taught me life skills that I think that, it's hard to find sometimes. But definitely some of it depends on, what your role is. But for someone in a position like mine, having the soft skills of communication, that's a huge one. And being able to, work with different personalities and have that emotional intelligence, I think is really important. Especially when you get into large businesses like this, and really just in the business world in general, you're going to come across so many different personalities, and being able to communicate effectively with all those people is really, really important. You guys are a great age where you're already computer savvy. So, having those skills are obviously incredibly important for what we do, is just generally communication. But I think, like Ian said, like knowing that you have to be to work on time and you're expected to show up and be here mentally and contribute, I think are all really, really important things that get overlooked sometimes.
What would you say are the pros and cons of your position?
Who wants to go first?
Tony, you're up.
Sure. All right. The pros and cons. There's a lot of pros. I really like my job. I was very lucky very early in my career to just discover this business and find something that I liked and that I was good at. Pros, I really like the construction because you're dealing with something real, right? So many of our jobs today are technically focused, and we have a technically focused job, but I get a lot of satisfaction driving by projects I did 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and hey, I remember that job, and I was a part of it. So that's kind of cool. I really like, not, even though I'm behind a desk right now, and I'm behind a desk most of the time, I like the ability to get out into the sites and get in the dirt and get in the mud. Some of the cons, it can be a stressful job. We have very strict deadlines. We have to get things done on time. Owners want their buildings built on time because they're going to move in. If I'm building a school, the school needs to be done in time for the students to come in, and they don't really care whether it's snowing or raining or whatever. We got to get done. We got to get out. So there's a lot of hard deadlines that we have to deal with. In my role with the team, sometimes we have to unfortunately terminate folks that aren't meeting the expectations, and those are always difficult conversations. I don't enjoy doing that. I'd rather prefer to identify people's weaknesses and try to help them work on them. But ultimately, sometimes this isn't the right fit for folks, and we have to have those difficult conversations. So that's definitely a con of it. Aside from that, I would say the pros definitely outweigh the cons.
I would agree. I think we all have a very common list, I would say, from what Tony said. This really is a fantastic company, and that's not even trying to pitch anybody. It's one of the best companies I've ever worked for. And you like Tony said, you get to see, I don't get to participate in the actual construction or the operation side of things, but it's very rewarding for someone in my position to be able to work on a proposal with our teams and see that we won email or the award come through, and it's incredibly satisfying because you're part of something tangible. It's in the more you get, the further you get into your career, obviously the more ownership you have. of certain things. And, I have a team that works with me, and, I'm responsible for helping mold their careers. And like Tony said, the con to the job sometimes is identifying people who aren't going to fit here at the company, and having to have those hard conversations. I would say, all of our jobs are, but I know mine very much so is I'm driven by deadlines. My schedule is completely driven by that. So the conventional 40-hour work week, it doesn't really fall into my schedule most of the time. There are times where it's a 70-hour work week and I'm here on the weekends, and it's not often, but it does happen. So there's that part, and it can be, you're dealing with a lot of money. We're talking some hundreds of millions of dollar contracts, and that can be pretty stressful sometimes. But assuming you come out on the winning end, it's, like I said, incredibly rewarding. And if you do come out on the losing end, if you're an analytical person, diving into the reasons why and helping fix those relationships or fix the technical side of things, it can be just as exciting sometimes.
Yeah, no, I just chime. I mean, similar in paralleling. I think the brief ones, the pros. I mean, obviously being able to have engagement with the teams, the collaboration, and I think some of that is the Rosendin piece with the employee ownership. It kind of broadens or empowers and enhances the collaboration. So I think that's a big part. I mean, for me too, like Tony said, I kind of had a path and was some choices along the way, but I pretty much took a straight line, and I like to build things. I like to fix things, and that's sort of it all kind of fits. So that's the pro for me. As far as cons, I tend to be an optimistic person, so I wouldn't say it's a con, but it's a challenge. Leadership's hard. It's not always easy. So, and what's interesting here is I may be in a certain role that would be traditionally considered leadership or a leader. But with Rosendin, we look to everybody. Everybody has a piece of leadership. You do not have to be on top of a traditional pyramid. There's a leadership requirement or an ask of everybody. So that's tough, but it's a challenge. I think I could spin that right back into a pro too. So that's
right.
my take.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. That the students know that it's important. All levels are important, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so given the pandemic, how have roles changed?
Oh, God.
The screen's going to start to go glitchy and we're shaking the computer. I don't know, Tiffany, go for it.
Sure. It was incredibly challenging from a personal experience at first. And I will say the main reason is having to readapt to what we know of common collaboration. You take for granted being able to walk down to someone's office and just knock on the door and pop in. So I think there's definitely been a lot more of accountability. We've most of our employees, with the exception of our prefabrication and some of our estimating teams, have been working from home for majority up until recently. We started being able to come back into the office safely. And I think that you have to adapt with the way things are. We're all going along at the beginning trying to figure out how were things going to change. And I think that, for someone in my role, I was very fortunate because I can pick up my laptop and frankly, I can work from anywhere in the world and get for the majority of what I do. So mine didn't change too much other than being on Zoom calls and web calls all day. And you do get tired of it. And when you're working from home, work doesn't leave. You have to make it a point to close the laptop and walk away and realize you have to find that norm for you now, what the new norm was or new norm is. So for me, I can't say it changed too dramatically much other than the collaboration and the in-person meetings and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, to chime in. So from our, like Tony said, I mean, the majority of our workers are electricians in the field. So we have over 1,000, I guess, office type workers, and then and these are round numbers, but say 6,000 or 7,000 field workers. So that in itself is a challenge because, as Tiffany described, sort of the Zoom meeting piece of it, but yet we also had workers in the field and we're trying to figure out the protocols, and they were, listed as essential workers. So construction continued. We didn't, we had situations and issues to work through. So that was tough too, because we had our own stuff in our offices to deal with, but then, it's a totally counter view, or it's just different. I mean, you can't build a building on a Zoom call. So that's been pretty tough. So it's, in as much, I think there'll be some good that comes out of it. I think we've found that there are certain meetings that this works. We don't have people flying all over the country or traveling in the car an hour and a half to have a meeting. But on the other hand, as soon as we were able to come back into our office partially, it was a relief, because it was so the efficiency of just getting a couple people in a room together real quick, and you could get things done as opposed to jumping from call to call. And so it's been challenging for sure.
I'll say also, to piggyback again with what Ian said, I think he hit a key point is, we're Rosendin, we pride ourselves on being a safe company. We have a humongous safety department. We have a great safety rating, and having to figure out how to be even more safe for our people, and working with contractors to make sure that they're meeting and exceeding our expectations to keep our individuals safe and healthy, and that people are going home in, if not the exact same conditions they came to work in, or better. So it's that's been definitely a big concentration of ours, as well as making sure that our safety protocols we're adhering to and exceeding them on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's awesome. Students, any more questions? Are there any specific soft skills or skills in general you recommend working on developing in high school? Kind of talked about that, but if you could talk about it again.
Sure. Ian, Tony, you guys want to jump in? Like I'm talking.
Yeah, I mean, soft skills, it's probably cliche, but the communication piece. And when I say communication, the biggest thing is probably listening, being able to just learn to listen to what others have to say. And to pause and not jump right in. I mean, those are probably things that you have to deal with at a high school level. As being in an industry for over 20 years, I still see people that have a hard time with it. So that's something to really look out for. And just mindfulness of others. I mean, that's a big piece of part of that too. It comes out here. I think COVID's a great example. We have, we have office people that can work behind a computer, and then we have construction workers that don't. And there's a flexibility there, right? There's some folks that have kids at home that need to work from home and can't join a meeting or can't walk a job. So there's a balance, there's an understanding, and just an appreciation for everybody there. So that's probably the best way I can put it, that we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that's a hard one. It's been a problem that we've been suffering with, is how do you communicate when you do have people out in the field and there's constant emails, you're just getting all these emails. How do you make sure that important information gets where it needs to go?
Don't use email. Pick up the phone, call somebody.
Yeah.
Well, it's very important, right? And we deal with that challenge a lot, is that email can very often come out of context, and you don't have any idea what the other person is trying to communicate, and whether that's a concern or not a concern, or it's a problem, or it's a fire. I recommend to a lot of my people that sometimes get into these back and forths with emails is like, stop and pick up the phone and have a conversation, because there's so much that is lost in email. You can't tell the tone, you can't tell the context. Unless you're writing 5-page narrative, you're not going to capture everything that can happen from the interactions face to face, over the phone or through a Zoom call if you have to.
I would say also, I think this kind of goes in line with the hundreds of emails that some of us receive every day, is a soft skill I highly recommend is time management. It is something I did not, and I'm still working on, but did not prioritize until much later in my career. And I can be a little bit of a squirrel. I've got 10,000 things going on, and I'm trying to attend to all of them while also maintaining a semblance of a life outside of work, but you have to meet those deadlines. And so figuring out, prioritizing what's the most important task. Do I spend an hour a day going through emails, and how much of that time should be devoted to a meeting or a call instead of a meeting? So I would definitely emphasize time management as well.
That is definitely a good one, and something high schoolers need to learn as well. I love your sign, by the way, Miss Abbott. Work hard and be nice. Yes, that is something that very important. So, anyone else have any questions? More questions? No, you can go ahead and turn your mic on, and you can ask if you don't want to type it. Well, I think we are done. So thank you so very much, Ann, Tiffany, and Tony, for sitting in with our students today and answering these questions and teaching us all about Rosendin.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.